Very frustrating mistake.
Well, it had to happen eventually. This is the most annoying mistake I've made during the build so far. Hello, my name is Aladino, and together with my wife Maya, we are refitting a Cape George Cutter 36. This has been a nearly complete rebuild. The only part that has been left untouched is the hull itself, and that's about to change. Last week I removed the boot stripe from just above the waterline. I'm going to extend the waterline up to where the boot stripe ended previously. This will have a bit of a similar visual effect, but it will also prevent that little stripe of grime and dirt and seaweed. We did this on Magic Carpet 1 and we're really happy with it. But there is a lot of prep work ahead. Now, we had the old anti-fouling removed professionally by means of soda blasting, which is less harsh than sand blasting. So the next step is give it some light sanding just to finish this prep and even it all out. And then when we're down on bare gel coat, or if this was also fiberglass, for example after an osmosis treatment, then one really wants to start with a barrier coat. A barrier coat is epoxy based, and it's to add waterproofing and to actually protect the hull, which isn't 100% waterproof. Osmosis is a well-known problem, but for those that haven't heard it before, it's basically water still finding a way through layers of the fiberglass. It doesn't mean it's sinking your boat at all, but some water seeps in microscopic crevices, and then it creates blisters. If the blisters get really big, then that can be an issue, a structural issue, as it causes delamination. But also a little bit of osmosis won't kill your boat, but it definitely decreases the value because the treatment, the repair is very time-consuming, costly. But yeah, water barrier prevents that. But before we start with that, I've got so many tasks on my hands right now, so it's time to get some other people involved to help us with some of them. I'm introducing you to our magical helper, Francois.
Hello, hello.
It's actually funny how we met. When we came up here to Canada, we needed a place to stay. A friend of Maya actually was going away for a couple of months, so we were able to take her room. And we had a couple of wonderful roommates, and Francois' girlfriend lives there. And he drove all the way across the country from Montreal to stay with her in the winter. And that's how we met, basically.
Yeah,
much. That's pretty cool.
Sharing the common love for sailing too.
Yeah, and yeah, you said you're developing a love for boats. This is not the best way by sanding bottoms, but
you gotta learn somewhere.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have you help us out with this.
It is a pleasure.
Thank you. So he's already done starboard. Yeah, you seem to be a natural. Yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm super happy. Totally. It's been a challenge so far to find reliable help because on one side either you pay a professional and that is really, really expensive, and even within the professional field there is different views and different approaches. And I've also just found that since it isn't like in Switzerland where it's like, okay, you've done at least these 4 years of apprenticeship and we've all done the same theory at school, we're more on the same page, whereas here often it's like, oh yeah, I've worked on a boat once and then I called myself a boat builder. That's more of an approach. And on the other side you have super skilled people too, but it's like, it's just hard to find and hard to know and hard to understand the difference. And working with volunteers is hard because I don't want to give people who are volunteering arduous tasks, but that's what we need help with, and that's where I can save some time. So yeah, it was a bit tricky. So I'm really happy that we found Francois. He is skilled, willing to learn and to do these tasks. He doesn't seem to mind at all. So yeah, he has that enthusiasm and optimism, which is great. However, even though I was very happy with Francois' work, I was less happy with mine.
Very frustrating mistake. So I am starting to think about the through holes, and so when you install those, there is the portion from the inside with the valve, and there is the mushroom which you place from the outside. So this is a seacock, and then this part is the through hole. This actually goes through the hull and it screws into the seacock. And now the surface, the inside, the transom here doesn't meet up parallel with the inside surface. So when we put the whole assembly together, there would be a gap. To have no gap showing here around the hull, I wanted this to sit flush, but I also want this to sit flush on the inside. That means the hull needs to be parallel, which it wasn't. So to allow for that, I thought I will install it, having this one flush on the outside where it looks nice, and on the inside where there is a gap, I'm gonna fill it with epoxy, which is what I did. And I've done it a couple of times without a problem, but now the ones I've done here, I cannot get apart anymore. Epoxy found its way too far and it got into the threads, which then caused the problem of me not being able to remove the through hull anymore later, because this was only intended until the epoxy cured, because then I have to install it properly still with bedding. So yeah, really frustrating. And then I got the bigger tools out and the bigger hammer, and I actually broke off one of the ears inside of the through hull. Now there's removal tools which go into here that I don't have and didn't use, that could have helped probably, but still those ears are supposed to be your help to actually be able to screw them out, and one of them broke. So there's no way to actually grip it anymore and to try to remove it in whatever way, gentle or not. So I resorted to the grinder. Instead of stewing about it, I just got to remove the outside portion. Those were the originals still. I was trying to recycle that part. Maybe the ears broke off because the fitting is compromised and weakened by disinkification. So grinding them away and then getting a new part. And I mean, now the part is epoxied from the inside at least, so things should sit flush once I get the old ones removed.
So if I ever have to do a similar thing again, then I will just have to grease up the through holes. And I know this is common practice. If you epoxy something together and you want to remove either the screw later or this part of the through hole, I know that you should. I didn't have grease available, and I just didn't think it would make it that far. Just from this specific application, I thought it would be more contained. But yeah, it did find its way where it shouldn't have, and it really got stuck. Mistakes are really annoying and more a bit demoralizing But they're really just a setback in time. You can always recover from a mistake. Everything can be built, everything can be fixed, everything can be redone. So it's really just some lost time and, like in this case, a little more expensive material. So it is really annoying. But yeah, you just gotta plug away at it because, know how to fix it again. Boat building is such a huge field. You really have to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. I've never made this mistake before, but to know how to recover, it's to know different tools, to know different theories and approaches, and then figure out which one is best to solve the situation again. So yeah, you do a little bit of metal work, you do the woodwork, you do the dentist work with oscillating multi-tools and Dremels, hammering, tapping, drilling. There's a lot to it, and it's more about which approach is the correct one now. So very often in boat building is not that you're taught one specific task, but you are equipped with a toolbox and the knowledge how to use all those. Yeah, then it's up to you to make the right decision and choose the right approach. Sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't, which adds to your tool bag and knowledge. The bottom is almost prepped. Francois is doing an excellent job. And now the next thing is I'm retaping the waterline.
Why is Francois saying leave the bottom if
Sandblasting still leaves an uneven surface. And there was like this little bit of pitting. So it's just to make it smoother. As you build coats, things become uneven again, but you want to start off with a surface that is as smooth as possible. And also some news on what happened yesterday, the day of the biggest mistake yet. I was actually able to save the expensive portion that we actually got new. The part that I had to grind off are the through holes, and those were the originals. There's always time for a first. I never had to Dremel out a through hole out of a seacock, but I managed to do so. I'm really happy that these are intact and we can reuse them. But yeah, we'll have to get new through holes for it, which, yeah, lesson learned, but I guess glad I was able to save these. So yeah, needless to say, I was pretty frustrated and angry yesterday, and Maya was just absolutely wonderful. I went home to a bubble bath. How cool is that? I don't think I've ever been in a bubble bath. Yeah, that was wow, it turned it into one of the best days. So thanks for that. And now the transom is ready too. I just had a little bit of fairing left to do there. I put on a plastic enclosure. I had a space heater to make it cure, and now I've sanded it. So yeah, the transom is ready for primer as well. Since we're here at the transom of the boat, I also want to share another job that has gone rather smoothly instead. Yesterday I attempted a little job where you don't know if it is completed within half an hour or if you have to pull out the dynamite and it takes a week. So I didn't film it. I just thought that it is an initiation. But surprisingly, it went super smooth. Talking about the cutless bearing, I removed it. This goes inside of the shaft log, the shaft tube. It goes right here. It has plastic surface with grooves so water can go in. These are notoriously difficult to remove because you never know what they were bedded with, and it is a really big surface. It's held in there very well. I never had success with using a threaded rod and putting the whole thing under pressure and trying to pull it out, but I still tried it because this would be the easiest method. So I made a couple of washers that are the exact diameter of the tube. So I inserted it from the inside, and then here I put on a nut and I started to exert pressure, in the hope that it pops and releases and comes out. But like I said, I don't know why I try this every time. I've never had success with this. This is more a method that I find works for either removing props or shaft couplings, because there also it's metal on metal, and sometimes when things are under pressure, a little bang with a mallet and it releases suddenly. But yeah, here with the glue, it's not glue like Sikaflex would not just release instantly. So what instead works here, and we've also made a video in the Netherlands because we replaced it on Magic Carpet 1 recently, is to use a metal saw. And as you can see, I did make one cut, so the whole thing just collapses. Then I was able to actually hammer in a chisel that lifted and folded this side up, and then I grabbed it with the vice grips, started twisting it, and it came out. So I'm super happy about this. The dynamite can stay in the locker. It's safe for another day. I'm glad this one was easy.
Meanwhile, inside the boat, I was gearing up for a big job. I think about 2 episodes ago, I mentioned my intention to redo the whole overhead inside, and I was serious. So, no better time than the present to get started. This is such a focal point of the boat. It's such a beautiful part of the design. Although it's really fiddly and probably is not going to be super fun to try and varnish it, I do think that the results are going to speak for themselves. So my plan to tackle this, there's a few difficulties involved. First of all, these beautiful beams have this really sharp, lovely detailing carved into the edges. And if I really go at this with a sander, I'm going to erase a lot of that detailing. And so I think I'm going to approach this really softly, a very slight sanding with a very fine grit sandpaper. As for the center, I'm going to sand that not all the way down to bare wood, just scuff it up with a little bit of a rougher grit to get it ready to just put some paint over top. Because there's already paint on here, I'm not going to go the extra mile with primer, just a really good sanding and then paint to match the rest of all of this. As always, we're using the trusty Epifanis products to match, the whole rest of the boat. So this is the 9010 satin finish polyurethane paint. Up here we're going to be, doing the same thing with the PP Extra varnish, several coats of that finished off with the rub defect varnish for the satin look. All right, so I got more sanding ahead. Let's get to it. It's definitely interesting to see the different camps in the YouTube comments that we read and just in life in general of, there's the very practical sailors who are just like, I just want to be on a boat and I just want to go sailing and that's all I care about. And then there's the other sailors who, really, really value sort of like the tradition and beauty of the craft. I would actually say I probably land a little bit in between. I'm not like a boat purist, I guess. Some of the things that, Aladino really, really cares about and pays attention to are things that I probably wouldn't notice. However, I do really, really care. I think about the feelings surrounding me. I think I've definitely got a bit of an artistic, soul in me that's really affected by my surroundings. And I think a really good example of this is, Magic Carpet 1 was such a small living space. But never at any moment did I feel constricted by it or like it was holding me back, because it was such a beautiful space to be in that even though it was small, it felt like rich and luxurious to be in that space. And when we were in the Netherlands doing a refit on Magic Carpet, we temporarily moved into a little camping trailer that the boatyard rented out for people working on their boats. And that trailer was actually bigger than Magic Carpet 1, and in many ways more functional. It was like a little bit more square. The cupboards didn't have like weird curved backs, and there was a proper fridge with a normally opening door. But just the construction of it, like it was just this very kind of cheaply made trailer, and not like super well kept up over the years, and it felt so like soul-sucking to be in, quite frankly. And I think what I learned from that is that the practicality of a space is something that's important, of course, but it has to feel good to you. It has to inspire you to live a better life. It has to give you a feeling of joy and beauty every time you look at it, and that's what I really care about. And at this stage in the refit, I know we're not going into the water anytime soon. Anyway, Aladino's busy doing lots of things, and he's going to be busy doing lots of things for a while. So I might as well use my time to create the kind of beauty inside that I would like to see. And, you know, that includes doing the overhead so that it matches all the rest of the beauty that I've created so far in here. There's lots of other things to do, of course, too. We need kitchen cabinets, we need cabinet doors in this saloon. The floor needs to be done. Lots of beautifying tasks, but I think it's worth doing. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but like, what is necessity, I guess? The little camping trailer had everything necessary except for heart and soul, and I don't know, I'd argue that is necessary. So next week, hopefully the epoxy primer will have arrived. We can prime the decks again. You've already seen Aladino prime the decks once, and that was just sort of to create an even surface, kind of seal up some pinholes, get a better idea of what we're working with. He then went on to do a little bit more fairing, sand everything down again. We're ready for the next coat of epoxy primer before paint. So another big step. Really, really exciting. We're getting so much closer every day to a big aesthetic change. And yeah, after so long in the project, having these big aesthetic changes is really important, I think, for the mental health. You know, we were talking just recently with Todd, who runs the Cape George Boatyard. He's really helpful, always answers our questions when we have them. And he said, you know, that is a challenging part, also from the perspective of working with clients like he does, that there's so much work that goes on under the surface and it takes so long. And throughout that process, there's not a lot of beauty there. There's a lot of like patches of fairing and just like random colors of different materials used everywhere. And it doesn't look cohesive and finished. And it's hard to imagine that end result. And so he says, you know, we have to just make sure to keep this morale up of the clients, and like, we're getting there, I promise we're close. And then as soon as that paint goes on, everything changes. I identify a bit more with the clients in this situation. I'm just ready to see the visual change, and we're getting really close now.
I'm happy how the week went, despite the little hiccup with the through hole. That's solved and behind me now, and I've learned my lesson. I'm happy to have Francois's help. The hull is now prepared for barrier coat, which will apply very soon. And Maya is turning the interior into something really beautiful, which I'm very happy for, because I would not have prioritized it. But I'm glad that she decided to do it. It will definitely be worth it. After all the work we've put into the boat, which was more behind the cupboards because it's all the structural stuff, it's not really visible, but I'm glad that since Maya is doing a lot of that, it will mean that we will step onto a very beautiful boat, because without all these things it would be a little anticlimactic to have done all this work and not have these beautiful details.
So thank you so much for being here with us this week. The build keeps marching on, and I know many folks ask about a splash date. I'm going to say vaguely summer 2024, so this year, but we don't know when exactly. You know, it's impossible to plan. Chances are we won't know when until the week before, to be completely realistic. But if you want to get real-time updates on that and perhaps even get invited to the launch when that happens. We post all of that on Patreon. So Patreon is all the real-time updates, and it's also what allows us to keep doing this and to be sponsor-free every week. We're completely audience-funded, and that is amazing because it means that, you know, we're not beholden to anybody telling us what we can say. We can just share with you actually what's going on and be audience directed. You can join Patreon for as little as $2 a month. It's completely flexible how you sign up and how you pay. Every week we post real-time updates with a video walkthrough of the boat so you can see what's going on. We really appreciate all of our patrons. An extra big thanks to the folks whose names are now appearing on screen for always going the extra mile to make sure that Magic Carpet keeps being produced. We'll see you all next Friday.